Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello guys, how are you today? I hope we are in the good condition right now. So, yeah, the honorable our lecturer, Dr. Dia Erlina SPD MHU, and also our beloved friends. In these opportunities, we are going to present our materials. Yeah, we are from Group 5, and it is Sociolinguistics subject with the title is The Function of the Speech, Politeness Address Forms, Linguistics Politeness in a Different Cultures. Okay, so first of all, let me introduce my friends. The first one, they are Dinaresa Jesica, Fitra Taqwa, Issac Ramadhan, Dico Putra, and also my name is Nur Kholiza Eka Saputri. So the first presentation will be explained by me. Okay, in here we have table of content. So in this chapter we are going to discuss 5 content. The first one is the function of the speech. Next, there is directives, politeness and address forms, linguistic politeness in a different culture, and the last one we have to discuss about greetings. Okay, so we have to explain one by one. The first one is, what is the function of the speech? In common or in a general, functions of the speech are a different ways of communicating the person. So the differences among the speech functions have to with the intention of the communication. Different intention or a goal leads to the use of a different function of the speech. And then in here there are a number of ways of categorizing the function of the speech. Actually there are 6 categories. The first one is expressive. So what is the meaning of expressive? It is to express the speaker's feelings. For example, I'm feeling great today, or I'm fine today, or I'm feeling sad today. Okay, so it's about the speaker's feelings. And then the second one is directive. So it is attempt to get someone to do something. For example, open the door please, or swap the floor please, or clear the table please. Okay, it is direction. In the sentence there are a direction for someone. And then referential, it is provide an information. For example, at third stroke it will be 3 o'clock precisely. So in that sentence contains of many information for someone. Okay, and then metalinguistics, it is comment on a language itself. For example, the hegemony, so it's not a common word. And then poetic, it is focused on the aesthetic features of the language. For example, a poem, an ear-catching motto, or a rime. For example, Peter Piper picked a pack of pickled peppers, like that. And then the last one is pathetic. So it is express the solidarity and empathy with the others. For example, hi, how are you? Or is it a lovely day, isn't it? And then what are your feelings right now? Yes, like that. Okay, so we go to the next slide. It is something important that we have to know of the function of the speech. It is that I have provided a very brief indication of what the function labels mean and an example of each in the forms of a single utterance. It is important to remember that any utterance may in fact express more than one function. So there are any function may be expressed at the stretch of a discourse which does it exactly with an utterance. The first function or the third function are recognized by many linguistics. They seem to be very fundamental functions of the language, perhaps because they derive from the basic components of any interaction. Okay, so I think that's enough our explanation. We are going to the next presenter.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Fitra Taqwa. Now we are going to talk about the directives. Look at the example 3. Teacher, what are you doing over by the window, Helen? And Helen looking at the birds, Miss. Teacher, and what should you be doing? Helen, no answer. And go and sit down now and get on with your writing. So the directives are concerned with getting people to do things. The speech action which express directives force very instance. We can attempt to get people to sit down, for instance, by suggesting or inviting them to do so, or by commanding them to sit down. Orders and commands are speech acts which are generally expressed in imperative form. For the polite attempts to get people to do something, in English tend to use interrogatives or declaratives. So, interrogatives or declaratives is polite to order someone or people. Look at to the example in your imperative, sit down and you sit down. So imperative that directly, this is not too polite. And if interrogative, this here interrogative use modal verb, so this more polite. And the second example, sit down, will you? This is used with tag of people, and one you sit down, interrogative with negative model. For the declarative, here the example, I want you to sit down. I'd like you to sit down, and you'd be more comfortable sitting down. So declarative and interrogative is polite or more polite than imperative. The list could go on and on. There are many ways to expressing this directive, and although we can say that general the interrogatives and declaratives are more polite than imperative, a great deal depends on intonation, tone of voice and context. So the directives that depend on situation or location or place. When in the class, teacher use the language more polite when teach the students. Different with when we are in shop. Actually that's polite also. For the example, box of match, could you possibly give me a box of match? That depends on situation or place. Thank you. Maybe just this from me. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am the third presenter, and the material is politeness and address forms. Okay, being polite is complicated business in any language. It is difficult to learn because it involves understanding not just the language, but also the social and cultural values of the community. And then we often don't appreciate just how complicated it is because we tend to think of politeness mainly as a matter of saying please and thank you in the right places. But in fact, it involves great deal more than the superficial politeness routines that parents explicitly teach the children. And then generally speaking, politeness involves contributing to harmony and avoiding social conflict. More specifically, linguistic politeness involves course, strategies or linguistic devices which are perceived or evaluated by others as having been used to maintain harmonious relation and avoid causing trouble. And next, there are two different types of politeness, and the first is positive politeness. Positive politeness is solidarity oriented. It emphasizes shared attitudes and values. For example, when the boss suggests the subordinate should use if and to her, it is a positive politeness move, expressing solidarity and minimizing status differences. Negative politeness pays people respect and avoid intruding them on them. And next there is negative politeness. Negative politeness involves expressing oneself appropriately in terms of social distance and respecting status differences. And then the example is using title plus last name to your superior and to older people that you don't know well. And next, being polite may also involve the dimension of formality. In a formal situation, the appropriate way of talking to your brother will depend on your roles in the context. For example, if he is acting as the judge in law court, then calling him Tom will be considered disrespectful, while at the dinner table calling him your honor will be perceived as inappropriate or humorous. Okay, I think that's all, and then thank you for attention. Let's go to next presenter.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. My name is Issac Ramadhan and I'm from Group 5. And now I want to continue our presentation material. So now I want to explain about linguistic politeness in different culture. So in this section, in linguistic politeness in different culture, there are 4 points. So the first one is communication. The second one is learning another language. The third is sociolinguistic assumption. And the last is acceptance and refusal. Okay, start from miscommunication. The potential areas of misunderstanding are even greater when we venture into new culture. Anyone who has traveled outside their own speech community is likely to have had some experience of miscommunication based on cultural difference. Often this related to different assumption deriving from different normal environments. For example, so we go to the next slide. So for example, a Thai student in Britain reported not being able to understand what her hostess mean when she asked, "On which day of week would you like to have your bath?" Okay, coming from a very hot country with a water-oriented culture, the notion that she might have a bath only once a week was very difficult to grasp. And then we go to the next slide. So it's about learning another language. Okay, learning another language usually involves a great deal than learning the literal meaning of the words, how to put them together, and how to pronounce them. We need to know what they mean in the cultural context in which they are normally used, and that involves some understanding of the cultural and social norms of their users. Okay, we go to the next slide. So the next slide is sociolinguistic assumption. Uh, Sociolinguistic assumption. We automatically make many unconscious sociolinguistic assumptions about what people mean when they ask a particular question or make a statement. Okay, and the last is acceptance and refusal. So there are some example of refusal and acceptance. And there are sociolinguistic norms for polite acceptance and refusal which differ cross-culturally. Refusing an invitation appropriately in Western culture can be challenging task, like how do you refuse a leave home from someone you don't like, or how do you refuse an invitation to a meal from someone who is your social superior. An excuse is mandatory, and it needs to be plausible and reasonable specific. In some cultures, there are very general vague formulas such as "I'm busy that night, I'm afraid," which are perfectly acceptable. But in many Western communities, people expect to be provided with a more specific reason for a refusal. Where solidarity is the dominant social dimension, privacy is reduced, and vagueness about one's activities is seen as evasive. Being polite in such contexts involves knowing how to express a range of speech function in culturally appropriate way. Okay, I think that's all. Thank you very much, and the next will be explained by Dinaresa Jesica.
Okay, so this is the last chapter. It is about greetings, and I will explain the definition first. Greeting is something friendly that you say or do when you meet someone. Here is some example of greetings such as how are you, where you are going, have you eaten, where do you come from, how much do you earn, and what do you do for living. And then from the example, we know that we need to greet someone in politeness at the first time. It is very important to be able to select an appropriate greeting for every situation. Avoid the personal question when you greet someone because it is impolite in some country, such as asking for age, someone occupation, or another impolite question. Also, the organization, word choice, and tone of your message allow the communication to be received and understood while maintain a positive relationship. Okay, I think that's all from our group. Thank you for your great attention. I'm so sorry if there are many mistakes. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.